On a rainy afternoon, Rio walked into the luxury gallery. His old shoes were wet, and his worn-out jeans and old coat looked different from the shining sports cars and impeccably dressed employees. He admired a red convertible car, but no one approached him. Disgusted glances and smug whispers filled the gallery. Ignoring these sneers, Rio continued to explore the gallery, which generated curiosity in some and antipathy in most. Raindrops trickled down the windows of the luxury sports car gallery. The atmosphere inside was perfect, with a lightly lit environment that highlighted the gleaming vehicles. Footsteps echoed on the marble floor as elegant suited salespeople talked about sales targets and potential customers. When Rio entered the store, the automatic doors opened silently. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and a calm demeanor. His clothes were simple. He wore worn-out jeans, a shirt, and an old coat. His rain-soaked shoes left wet marks on the polished floor. The young receptionist, Lucia, looked up from her desk when she heard the door sound. "Good afternoon," she said with a professional but slightly distracted smile. "Good afternoon," Rio replied, greeting her politely and moving towards the red convertible car. He ran his hand over the car, admiring the perfect paint job. In the room, the two main salespeople, Sully and Jesse, watched Rio with disgusted expressions. The tall one, Sully, whispered something to Jesse, and Jesse chuckled secretly. "Look, it seems we have an unusual customer," one of them said. Jesse responded arrogantly, "Does he even know where he is?" Adjusting his tie, he was preparing to approach Rio. Sully was the first to approach. "How can I help you?" he asked, with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Rio assessed him by his tone and smug demeanor. "Yes, I'd like to know more about this car," he said calmly. "Sure," Sully replied, quickly losing interest, and added, "But are you sure this is the kind of car you're looking for? We have more accessible models. Maybe you should check them out first." Rio understood the implied meaning and smiled slightly. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he opened the car door and continued to examine the luxurious interior. Meanwhile, Lucia was watching from her desk, feeling uncomfortable with Sully's attitude but unsure how to intervene. She always tried to treat all customers with respect, regardless of their appearance. But she knew not everyone in the store behaved that way. "I really want to know more about this model," Rio said, ignoring Sully's suggestion. Sully shrugged and began reading the car's features without hiding his impatience. "This is the new sports model with a V8 engine. It has 450 horsepower and an aerodynamic design that offers the best performance in its class." "Interesting," Rio murmured, gently closing the door. "And what is the price?" Sully said, glancing sideways. Jesse, still smiling quietly, said, "This car isn't cheap, it's priced around $200,000. Rio nodded thoughtfully. "I see. So what are the financing details?" he asked. Sully clearly looked irritated, feeling that he was wasting his time on someone he didn't believe was a serious buyer. "I can look into that information, but I really suggest you check out the more accessible models first," he said. Rio thanked him with a smile and left the gallery. He felt the curiosity he left in the staff. He knew he was being judged not just by his appearance but also by his skin color, but he didn't let it bother him. He had bigger plans, and this visit was just the beginning. Lucia watched Rio leave, feeling guilty for not doing more. She wondered who he really was and why he came. But one thing was certain, he would leave a lasting impression that no one in that gallery could foresee. It had been 2 days since Rio's visit to the gallery. That Tuesday morning, the sun was shining brightly, and the gallery was busier than usual. The atmosphere was filled with the ringing of phones and the sound of negotiation talks, creating an air of expectation. Rio returned to the store. This time, he was dressed simply. A cotton shirt and clean jeans, but still looked different from the typical gallery customers. As he walked in through the main door, he again felt the curious and disdainful gazes focused on him. Lucia was at the reception, typing something on her computer. She looked up and immediately recognized Rio. "Good morning," she said with a genuine smile. "Good morning," Rio replied, appreciating the kindness in her voice. Before Lucia could say anything more, Sully appeared beside her. "You again?" he said, in a surprised but still disdainful tone. "Are you back to look at the more accessible models I mentioned before?" Rio remained calm, not caring about the sarcasm. "Actually, I'd like to speak with the manager this time. Is he available?" Sully, clearly irritated by Rio's persistent attitude, replied, "Mr. Gibson is currently in a meeting, but I can't say if he'll talk to you afterward." I'll wait, Rio said, crossing his arms patiently. Sully glanced at Jesse, who was serving another customer. They smirked. Meanwhile, Lucia was growing increasingly uncomfortable with her colleague's attitude. Are you sure you want to wait? It might take a while, Sully said, trying to discourage Rio. I have time, Rio replied firmly. Seeing that Rio wouldn't give up, Sully shrugged and returned to his duties, leaving Rio waiting in the middle of the gallery. Sensing the tension, Lucia stood up and approached Rio. Can I offer you a coffee while you wait? She asked, trying to lighten the situation. That would be great, thank you, Rio said. As Lucia prepared the coffee, Rio took a closer look at the cars in the gallery. He observed the details of the vehicles, their flawless finishes, and thought about the hard work required to create something so perfect. Each car was a work of art, a combination of engineering and design, something that deeply impressed him. When Lucia returned with the coffee, she found Rio admiring the leather interior of a black sedan. Here you go, she said, handing the cup to Rio. This is one of my favorites. The design is really sleek, she said. Rio smiled as he accepted the coffee. I agree, it's an impressive car. They remained silent for a while, chatting only about the beauty of the vehicle. Lucia felt a growing curiosity about Rio. Who was he really? What brought him here? Why was he insisting on getting service despite others' indifference? If you don't mind, I'm curious, Lucia began hesitantly. What brought you back here? It seems like you really want one of these cars. Rio took a sip of his coffee before answering. I've always had a passion for cars, but it's not just that. I'm also here to see how people are treated. Sometimes appearances can be deceiving. Lucia was struck by his answer, realizing there was more to this situation than what met the eye. However, before she could ask more questions, Sully reappeared, interrupting the conversation. Mr. Gibson is available now. I'll take you to his office, he said with a displeased expression. Rio nodded to Lucia in thanks and followed Sully to the manager's office. Mr. Gibson, a middle-aged man with gray hair and an authoritative air, sat behind a large wooden desk. Mr. Gibson, this is Rio, Sully said with a disdainful tone in his voice. Good morning, Mr. Gibson, Rio said, greeting him with a handshake. Mr. Gibson shook Rio's hand with a neutral expression. Good morning. How can I help you? He asked. I'd like to discuss some matters regarding the purchase of a car, Rio said calmly. And also about the service I've received. Mr. Gibson raised an eyebrow with interest. Of course. Please have a seat, he said. Rio sat in the chair in front of the manager's desk, feeling the tension in the air. He would soon reveal his true identity, but he wanted to see who everyone really was. For now, he would observe and wait, noting every action and word. On Saturday morning, the gallery was even busier. The rain from the previous days had given way to bright sunlight, which filled the gallery and made the cars shine like jewels. Rio entered through the main door again, dressed simply as usual. But this time he wasn't alone. Beside him was Fernandez, a stylish man with gray hair and a perfect suit. Fernandez exuded confidence and authority, immediately drawing the attention of the gallery staff. Lucia was attending to another customer but saw Rio and Fernandez enter together. She sensed that something was up. Sully, always alert to new customers, quickly approached the two men. Good morning, gentlemen, how can I assist you? He said, focusing on Fernandez and ignoring Rio. Fernandez smiled politely. We'd like to speak with the manager, please. Of course, if Mr. Gibson is in his office, I'll take you to him, Sully said with a respectful tone. As they followed Sully to the office, Lucia continued to observe, sensing the tension. She knew Rio had a plan but didn't know what it was. Mr. Gibson stood up when the visitors entered. Good morning, gentlemen. How can I help you? He said. Fernandez took the initiative. My name is Fernandez Wood. I'm a business consultant, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Rio. Mr. Gibson looked at Rio and finally recognized him. Mr. Rio, of course, please have a seat. How can we assist you? Rio sat down next to Fernandez and said calmly, I want to discuss purchasing a car, but I think it's important to talk about the service I received on my previous visits first. Mr. Gibson frowned uncomfortably. I'm sorry to hear that. Could you tell me what happened? Rio leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. On my 2 visits here, I was treated condescendingly by some of your staff, Sully and Jesse. They judged me based on my appearance and skin color, which is unacceptable, Rio said. Mr. Gibson shot an angry glance at Sully, who was standing at the door. Mr. Thompson, I apologize for the behavior of my staff. We will address this immediately. Fernandez, who had been observing, stepped in. We are not here just to discuss problems, Mr. Gibson. We are here to ensure that this gallery maintains its standards of respect and professionalism. Sully, realizing the gravity of the situation, began to sweat. Mr. Gibson, I didn't know he was an important customer. That doesn't matter, Rio interrupted sharply. All customers should be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance. I am here to buy a car, but I am also here to help improve the culture of this gallery, he said. Mr. Gibson nodded firmly. I completely agree, Mr. Rio. We will make the necessary changes. Rio stood up. I hope so. For the car, I want to buy the red one I saw on my first visit. Mr. Gibson, nervously smiling, said, Of course, it will be a pleasure to assist you with that. Rio shook the manager's hand. Thank you for your understanding. I hope my next experience here will be entirely different, he said. As Rio and Fernandez left the office, Lucia approached them, her face filled with concern. Rio, I'm sorry for what happened. I should have done more. Rio smiled kindly at her. Lucia, you were the only one who treated me with respect here, and I appreciate that. Keep being yourself. Lucia smiled in relief. As Rio and Fernandez left the gallery, the sun was shining, symbolizing new hope for Rio. That visit was an important step in changing the gallery's attitudes. That day, Rio not only bought a car, but also planted the seed for necessary change. He knew that real wealth was in how we treat each other, and he was determined to show this to the world, step by step. Next morning, the gallery was unusually busy. The visit of Rio Thompson and his shocking revelations had everyone on edge. Mr. Gibson called the staff to the meeting room for an urgent meeting. With a serious expression, he showed the gravity of the situation. Good morning, everyone, he began, looking around. Yesterday, we experienced a very important event. Mr. Rio Thompson, a customer many of you treated inappropriately, is actually the owner of the factory that produces our cars, Mr. Gibson said. A murmur of astonishment spread through the group. Sully and Jose, standing in the back, felt a rush of panic and fear. Lucia, standing nearby, gave Mr. Gibson a look that mixed relief and concern. Some behaviors here were unacceptable, Mr. Gibson continued. This leaves a bad impression on all of us and, more importantly, goes against the values we must uphold. Starting today, there will be changes. Sully hesitantly raised his hand. Mr. Gibson, I want to apologize for my behavior. I didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. Mr. Gibson shot him a stern look. I'm sorry, Sully, but apologies are not enough. There can be no excuse for your attitude. You and Jose are terminated immediately. The room fell silent. Sully and Jose were speechless. Lucia watched with a strange feeling. They had made serious mistakes, but they were still her colleagues. The rest of you, Mr. Gibson continued, we now expect exemplary behavior. We want this gallery to be known for respect and professionalism. Our focus will be on providing the best service to our customers. After the meeting, the employees slowly returned to work, whispering about the recent events. Lucia sat at her desk, her mind filled with thoughts about Rio and the lesson he had taught everyone. In the afternoon, while everyone was still in shock, Rio visited the gallery again. This time he was wearing a stylish suit and looked completely different, but the look in his eyes remained the same. Lucia was the first to see him and quickly went to greet him. Rio, what a surprise to see you again, she said, smiling. Hello, Lucia, Rio said, shaking her hand. I came to pick up my new car, but also to see how things are going. Lucia led him to Mr. Gibson. Seeing that Mr. Gibson was visibly tense in his office, Rio shook his hand and said, Mr. Thompson, it's a pleasure to see you again. The pleasure is mine, Mr. Gibson, Rio said, taking a seat. I heard about the changes you've made. I hope this will be a new beginning for everyone. You can be sure of that, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Gibson said. We are committed to ensuring that all customers receive the respect they deserve. Rio nodded in satisfaction. So, is the red car ready? Yes, of course, Mr. Gibson said, standing up. I'll accompany you. They walked through the gallery together. The employees watched them with admiration and respect. The red car was ready and shining, waiting to be delivered. Rio felt a wave of satisfaction as he saw the car and smiled. Perfect, Rio said, patting the car's hood. Lucia approached nearby, holding an envelope. Rio, here are the car's documents. Everything is ready. Rio took the envelope and looked at Lucia with gratitude. Thank you, Lucia. You were the only one who showed me respect from the start. I'd like to show my appreciation somehow. Lucia was surprised. "No need, Rio. I just did what was right." "Still," Rio said, taking a business card from his pocket and giving it to Lucia. "If you're interested in a new opportunity, contact me. I'm sure someone like you can make a big difference anywhere." Lucia looked at the card with pride. "Thank you very much, Rio. I'll think about it." As Rio got into the car, he waved to the employees watching from afar. "Remember, respect is fundamental. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated," he said. With these words, he started the car and left the gallery, leaving an indelible mark on everyone. The lesson he gave was not just about business, but also about humanity and virtue. In the following days, the atmosphere in the gallery changed significantly. Lucia was promoted to a more responsible position, and the new employees hired were selected not only for their sales skills, but also for their values and attitudes. Rio enjoyed the taste of success. He knew that his visit to that gallery was about more than just buying a car. He had planted the seeds of change, and he was confident they would grow and flourish, leading to a culture of respect and empathy. The story of Rio Thompson spread throughout the city. It inspired others to reevaluate their attitudes and behaviors. He became a living example that true wealth and power lie not only in material possessions, but in how we treat each other. The story of Rio Thompson and his visit to the gallery quickly circulated throughout the city. It became a topic of conversation in cafes, offices, and family dinners. The fact that the humble man was actually the owner of the factory surprised many, and led the community to reconsider their attitudes. The atmosphere in the gallery changed drastically. Lucia was promoted to customer service manager and took on her new responsibilities with determination, working to fulfill her promise of providing a more respectful environment. That Monday, the store was busy. Lucia walked around the gallery, observing the new sales staff. They appeared motivated and determined to adhere to the new service standards. She felt proud and hopeful about the changes they were implementing. At the end of the day, while reviewing some reports in her office, Lucia received an unexpected phone call. The caller was Rio's business consultant and friend, Fernandez. "Good afternoon, Lucia. I hope you're well," Fernandez began in his calm voice. "Good afternoon, Fernandez. I'm well, thank you. How about you?" Lucia replied, wondering about the purpose of the call. "I'm well, thank you. Actually, I'm calling to discuss a proposal with you. Rio and I were very impressed with how you handled everything at the gallery. We would like to invite you to a meeting at our headquarters." Lucia was surprised and felt a bit nervous. "A meeting at the headquarters? What about?" "Rio has some projects, and he believes you could make significant contributions. We would like to discuss this with you in detail," Fernandez explained. Lucia took a deep breath, sensing the importance of the invitation. "Of course, I would be honored. When will the meeting be? Could it be tomorrow morning at 11 a.m? We can send a car to pick you up," Fernandez suggested. "That would be great, I'll be ready," Lucia said, feeling excited and a bit nervous. Next morning, a sleek car arrived at her house precisely at 10 BU. Lucia felt like a movie character. Driver took her to the company's headquarters, an impressive building made of glass and steel reflecting the sunlight. Lucia entered, impressed by the modern environment. Fernandez greeted her in the lobby and took her to the meeting room. Rio was sitting at the head of the table, reviewing some documents. "Good morning, Lucia," Rio said, standing up to shake her hand. "Good morning, Rio," Lucia replied, feeling a bit more relaxed. "Please have a seat," Rio said, pointing to a nearby chair. "I'm glad you accepted our invitation," Lucia smiled. "I'm eager to learn more about these projects." Rio nodded and glanced at Fernandez. "Lucia, from our first interaction, I was impressed by your professional and respectful attitude. In today's competitive environment, we need people who can help lead us with integrity." Fernandez took a file and placed it in front of Lucia. "We are developing a customer service training program, and we want you to lead this project." Lucia opened the file and saw the details about the program's goals, strategies, and resources. She felt a surge of excitement and responsibility as she looked at Rio and Fernandez. "This is amazing. I'd love to be a part of it." "We knew you would say that," Rio said, smiling. "Your experience at the gallery and your attitude are exactly what we need to convey our values to all our galleries." Lucia spent several hours discussing the project details with Rio and Fernandez. They talked about the importance of building a culture of respect and empathy, and how the training could transform the customer experience across all factories. By the end of the meeting, Lucia felt inspired and motivated. Rio and Fernandez accompanied her to the exit, showing her how much they valued her. "We are confident you will do an excellent job," Rio said, shaking her hand again. "Thank you for accepting this challenge." "Thank you for the opportunity, Rio. I can't wait to get started," Lucia replied, smiling. On the way back, Lucia reflected on her journey from her first encounter with Rio to this moment. She felt she had grown both professionally and personally. This experience taught her the importance of respect and how small actions can make a significant impact. Back at the gallery, Lucia began preparing her team for the new guidelines. She held meetings, shared the training program's goals, and encouraged everyone to adopt a more humane and empathetic approach to customer service. The results were remarkable. Customer satisfaction increased, and the gallery gained a positive reputation in the community. Lucia became a leader known for her dedication and integrity. Rio closely followed the progress. He regularly visited the gallery, offering support and guidance. He and Lucia developed a strong working relationship based on their mutual commitment to respect and excellence. Rio and Fernandez's projects continued to grow, and Lucia played a critical role in their implementation. She traveled to other galleries to share her experiences and encouraged other teams to follow her guidelines. At the end of the year, the factory held a large conference to celebrate their successes. Rio gave an emotional speech highlighting the positive impacts of the training program and Lucia's critical role. This journey has shown us that true wealth is not just in our products and possessions, but in how we treat people, Rio said, looking at the audience. And no one represents this principle better than Lucia. Her dedication and leadership are an example for all of us. Lucia stepped onto the stage to loud applause. She thanked Rio, Fernandez, and the entire team, emphasizing that success is a collective effort. "I am honored to be a part of this journey," she said, smiling. "Together we can continue to create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected." Over time, the gallery became a model for customer service. This caught the attention not only of other galleries but also of executives in the automotive industry. Rio and Lucia frequently received invitations to speak at conferences and seminars, where they shared their experiences and lessons learned. One morning, Lucia received a call from Rio. He sounded more excited than usual. "Lucia, I have incredible news," he said excitedly. "What is it, Rio?" Lucia asked curiously. "We've been invited to an international customer service conference in Paris. They want you to present our training program and share our story." For a moment, Lucia was speechless. "Paris, that's amazing, Rio, but why me? You should be the one to present. You're the right person for this job. Lucia, you've lived through this transformation from the beginning. Your recognition is strong and inspiring. Plus, this is a great opportunity for you and our team." Lucia felt a mix of excitement and nerves. "I'll do my best, Rio. Thank you for trusting me." The following days were filled with preparations. Lucia dedicated herself to creating an effective presentation, filled with detailed slides and inspiring stories. She wanted the audience to feel the same passion and determination that drove the transformation of her gallery. When the travel day finally arrived, Lucia flew to Paris with Rio and Fernandez. Upon landing, she was enchanted by the beauty of the City of Light. The charming streets, lively cafes, and magnificent architecture created a magical atmosphere. On the day of the conference, Lucia woke up early, feeling both anxious and excited. The conference hall was filled with professionals from various parts of the world. Rio accompanied her to the stage and gave her a final boost of confidence. "You're going to do great, Lucia. Everyone here is eager to hear your story." Lucia took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The lights dazzled her for a moment, but she quickly adjusted and found Rio's encouraging gaze in the front row. She began to speak. Starting with Rio's first visit, she recounted the journey of the gallery from the initial challenges to significant changes. She talked about the obstacles they faced, the lessons they learned, and how the culture of respect and empathy transformed not only customer service, but also the lives of the employees. Lucia emphasized stories of satisfied customers and how small acts of kindness can make a big difference. The audience was completely captivated, listening intently to every word. When Lucia finished her presentation, the room echoed with applause. She felt a wave of satisfaction and gratitude. After the presentation, many participants approached Lucia to congratulate her and ask questions. Executives from various companies wanted to know more about the training program and how they could implement it in their own organizations. Among the participants was a middle-aged man with gray hair and a warm smile who stepped forward. He introduced himself as Carlos, the CEO of a renowned chain of European galleries. "Lucia, your presentation was wonderfully received. The impact you and your team have made is impressive," he said. "Thank you, Carlos. It was a challenging but very rewarding journey," Lucia replied. "I would like to invite you to visit our galleries and help us implement a similar program. We can learn a lot from you." Lucia, surprised and honored, said, "It would be an honor, Carlos. Let's discuss this further." Back at the hotel, Rio and Fernandez congratulated her on the presentation. "You were amazing, Lucia. I'm so proud of you," said Rio. "Thank you, Rio. That means a lot to me. Thank you for believing in me from the start." Their days in Paris were filled with meetings, networking, and exploring the city. Lucia enjoyed every moment, not knowing how this experience would shape her future in ways she could never have predicted. When they returned, the gallery was more vibrant than ever. The employees were inspired by Lucia's trip and the stories she brought back. She organized a meeting to share her experiences and discuss new ideas to further improve customer service. "We have an incredible opportunity to continue growing and learning," Lucia said at the meeting. "You all are part of this transformation, and together we can achieve even more." The employees applauded, feeling motivated and valued. The culture of respect and empathy continued to thrive, bringing positive results for both customers and the team. Rio continued to support Lucia and her team, knowing that true success lay in how they treated each other. He regularly visited the gallery, offering guidance and celebrating their achievements. Rio Thompson's visits became a local legend, inspiring the gallery and other businesses to review their practices and place greater value on the human aspect of their work. Lucia, now a recognized and respected leader, knew that her journey was just beginning. She continued to work tirelessly to promote a culture of respect, knowing that every small act of kindness and empathy made a difference. And so, the journey of Rio and Lucia continued, always seeking new ways to make a positive impact on the world around them. We hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more videos.